Hi everybody, this is JT and I've just been power washing, doing some stuff in the garden, as you do in the middle of a corona crisis. This is the first time I've done this, which is like a video for church and for anybody else that wants to have a look at it. It's going to go up onto my new YouTube channel, which is Chiro JT, CHIRHOJT, and those of you who might know what that means, there'll be a special prize for the first person to tell me what does Cairo mean. Okay, this is a crazy situation and we've never done it before, but Simon's asked me to just have a look at the Book of Acts, and perhaps a few people will over the next few video meetings, because we might learn some things there which the first Christians did, which might be able to help us in our current situation here. Now, the Book of Acts, I've got to say it, is one of my favourite books. In fact, it's probably one of the most important books to me. And I fell in love with the Book of Acts not long, about a year after I became a Christian. And then when the New International Version came out in the 70s, I remember starting to read the Book of Acts all the way through, and I was totally entranced by it. I was in college at the time. I read it walking up to the bus stop, on the bus, walking up Mount Pleasant Hill, and it was just amazing. Went into my British Constitution class and still locked in reading it. And the lecturer came in and said, Mr. Tancock, what are you doing? And I said, I'm reading a book, sir. What book is that? The Bible, Book of Acts? He said, Mr. Tancock, this is a British Constitution lesson, not a Bible lesson. But anyway, I just loved it. And I would encourage you to read the Book of Acts from beginning to end in a translation that you're not familiar with. If you're not used to the New Century Version, read it in that, or the Good News Bible. If you're not familiar with the NIV, well, read it in the NIV. It was written by Luke, who was a doctor. It's a two-parter, because the first half is Luke, the Gospel of Luke. The second half is the Book of Acts, and it's not the Acts of the Apostles, it's Acts of Apostles, or some Acts of some Apostles. Okay, Acts. Some people don't like us using the Book of Acts to prove anything, because there isn't direct teaching there, and we should go to the letters of the New Testament. Well, I think that's daft, because what you see in the Book of Acts is what was happening when the letters were being written. So the two should be read in conjunction. And if, for instance, if you want to find out how the first Christians preached the gospel, you don't go to the letters, because those are for Christians. You go to the Book of Acts. It's obvious, really. But anyway, what Acts does do, even though you don't get lots of direct teaching, it gives us examples and it gives us precedent. So what did the first Christians do? And you'll see some examples there. It's a really helpful book. And it would be true to say that the situation that we find ourselves in today, we haven't been this way before. I've never been in a society or a town or a city or a street that's in the grip of a pandemic, and where people are dying, people are scared, lots of emergency announcements. This is something new for all of us, all right? So in the Book of Acts, there are situations that we need to be aware of, because they had never been that way before either. Prior to the Book of Acts, you had Jesus on earth. Prior to that, you had the Old Testament and the Jewish religion with the temple and synagogues, etc. But in the Book of Acts is something completely different. Also, they didn't have any buildings, so it's like as if we don't have a building. We have one, but we can't use it. In the Book of Acts, and in fact for the first nearly 300 years of the Christian church, there were no buildings. They met in homes, they met in hired halls, and for the early part of the book of Acts, because all of them were still just Jews and no Gentiles, they actually carried on going to the temple a few times a day to pray, the ones in Jerusalem anyway. And there was no clergy, there were no priests, there were no single leaders of any church. All churches were led by groups of people, elders. So we are watching in the book of Acts the church for the first time getting its act together with no pathway. There wasn't like a route which they could follow or a handbook. It's just, this is it. We've just met Jesus. He's now gone back to heaven. What do we do? It's amazing. So I just want to mention 4 things that the very first Christians did. And you'll find it in Acts 2:42, and it's a very familiar verse because I've used it a lot and I know others have. My apologies. It's a sneeze, not a cough, right? Acts 2:42 says, the apostles were doing many miracles and signs, and everyone felt great respect for God. And that everyone obviously is referring to society at large. But then it says, that was verse 43. Verse 42 says, they spent their time learning the apostles' teaching, sharing, breaking bread, and praying together. Now, we can't do those things the way that we used to. But what we can do is continue to learn the apostles' teaching, not just reading the Bible, but looking at teaching videos that we can get from elsewhere. There's some old T3s which are on the Spring Terrace website. There's some other great websites, the Bible Project, with superb teaching in animated form. I've used some of them in meetings and things. And the 1 Minute Apologist, they're very short messages, they're really, really good. But we can learn the apostles' teaching. It says they were sharing. Well, we can't do the practical sharing face to face, but we can share. We can give encouragement, we can ring people up, and we can continue to help and support each other. Our primary responsibility, Peter says, we should do good to all people, especially the family of believers. Especially the family of believers. And then the other 2 parts are breaking bread and praying together. Now, my suggestion would be that we could break bread together, but we do it on video, and each of us with some bread and some Ribena or wine or whatever. So I'm checking that out. See if Simon and Helen can organise that. That would be a bit different, wouldn't it? Because the first Christians did that daily. It says praying together. Well, we can pray in video conference and Zoom and whatever else, but we can continue to pray. Listen to the messages coming up from Simon and Helen, particularly about people in need, and let's continue to pray. Okay, I set out to do 5 minutes, and I'm just coming up to 9 minutes, and I'm going to close in prayer in the way that I often do. Holy God, we bless your name, as we cannot these days hold each other. Make your presence known, Holy Father. Make your presence known, because we know you are with us each day. Okay, that's me over, and I look forward to seeing some of the other videos. And hey, if you want me to do a video, I'm doing some stuff on my blog. If you want me to do a video on any particular subject or whatever, let me know. All right. Bless you, everybody.